The sky so far, but I can't lose it.
Sim racers from around the globe, honoring a revolutionary era of open-wheel racing. With a beast not easily tamed, roaring around legendary circuits at breakneck speed. When engineers and drivers push boundaries, sometimes too far. When heroes muscled roaring beasts wheel to wheel around the hallowed ground. A time when the only driver aids were his 2 feet, the perfect combination of man, machine, and speed. Experience the competition and the glory of early 80s IndyCar action. The Lionheart Retro Series presented by Next Level Racing starts now. It was a race bigger than a championship, but heading out of the butt-kicker Indy 250, the drivers of the Lionheart Retro Series know that double points have shifted the championship equation, and it is time to buckle in and push on as we hit the halfway mark in 2022. It's been a year of unknowns with new tracks challenging rookies and veterans alike, and today is no different. Welcome to Hungary, welcome to the Next Level Racing Grand Prix of the Hungaroring, presented by SimRace247. Hello and welcome back to RaceSpot TV and coverage of the 2022 Lionheart Retro Series. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, delighted to welcome you tonight because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary Ultraball Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. Let's dive straight into our Next Level Racing pre-race show. Alongside myself, Arjuna Kankipati, Ewan O'Leary is in the comms booth, and Ewan, for the first time, the Retro Series breaks out the Lotus 79s at a technical racetrack. You and I were chatting just before we got underway. It's fair to say we differ on the grandeur of this track.
Absolutely, yeah. Obviously, a lot of people really do like this circuit, new one to iRacing, which does always help. But there are plenty of people who don't as well, and that's going to factor into today. Who can just get round and get enough points and get the good points that they need in terms of their championship today, even at a circuit they don't like. But yeah, it is a decent one, as we were saying before. You obviously like it quite a lot, a little bit less, but it still should be a very good race indeed. I'm looking forward to it.
What I like about it is its technicality and its slow speed nature requires balance of car, and it's going to be difficult to pass, but in some ways those are the races that play out as the most entertaining, when the fight to get past is almost as important as the fight itself. But as we look at this Next Level Racing Series schedule, you'll take note, it's been a couple of weeks since our second Triple Crown race of the season. We're heading into a busy portion, though, for these drivers. 3 races back-to-back as we move our way into the second half of the season. After the Hungaroring, it's a trip to IndyCar and American Open Wheel Staples, and we go to Iowa and Michigan.
Absolutely, it's very, very different, and that's what makes the Lionheart Retro Series one of my favourites. Actually, the differences in these circuits is quite broad, as we've already seen in this championship, going from Indianapolis to Hungaroring in a matter of weeks here, for example. It really makes for great racing and a great championship as well that is developing right now. So yeah, great schedule once again this season, and it's going to get very, very busy as the summer tends to from time to time, as you say, back to back coming up.
But of course, of the 9 races that kicked off the first half of the season, 3 of them brand new to the schedule. A trip to Brands Hatch, of course, then to Nashville next time out, and today to the Hungaroring. It's been challenging for drivers new and old alike to get up to speed with the new challenges being thrown their way. Here's a look at your Next Level Racing driver standings, and with double points on the line after missing a race, Mike Rasmus is back on top. David Sirois continues the impressive climb, but the MadWorks Motorsports duo of Matt Taylor and Michael O'Brien slipped to 3rd and 4th in the points. But always, double points are going to be a bigger shake-up, but we head now through a long phase of the championship, and the next time double points are on the line, when we close things out at Fontana in our series finale.
Absolutely, yeah. It'll be nearly 5 months' time before we see those double points rearing their head once again, so that's going to be factored in by everybody. It's going to get very, very close over these next few weeks, and hopefully we don't see a runaway winner. We want to see this championship fight go all the way down to the line at Auto Club, and there's every chance that it will do with the situation as you can see right now. It looks like they're fairly spaced out, but top 7 within about 95 points or so. It's not bad at all for the halfway stage, and there'll be a lot of drivers fancying their chances with the second half of the season coming up.
And as we look at these driver standings, note the names for the teams, because as we swing over to the HyperX team standings, no longer MadWorks Motorsports domination, it's Graphics LC. 1, 2, 3 to start off our championship at Homestead, but back on top in this team standings, but only 4 point splits them. Raven Lavoie trying to hold pace as well, but the top 3 very much have been the class of the field so far in 2022.
Yeah, there's a big gap going on there between 3rd and 4th. It's very telling as to how this season has gone so far, but this is also going to be one to watch throughout the season. Only 4 points separating the top 2 teams right now, and team standings are always the ones that get spread apart most easily. in these times. I mean, can you remember any teams championship fight ever? Because it's just often so spread out, but this one is absolutely not the case, and there's plenty of time for this to go to and fro as well.
It always adds a different complexion when you think about the makeups and the compositions of the teams. Let's talk to you, though, about the rookies, those making their names in the history books for the Lionheart Retro Series. Of course, David Rodriguez, a partial schedule at the end of 2021, a miraculous win, of course, for him at Iowa. But today, it's a very different challenge. Rodrigo Munoz has jumped in front of our first Triple Crown winner of 2022, Jim Herrick, who slots into third. We've got a nice shake-up of drivers. Of course, Rodriguez, though, more than 100 points clear and starting to run away with the championship here. Let's look, though, at your Gomez Sim Industries Series details as the Lionheart Retro Series works its way through Season 6 in Year 9 of the Lionheart Racing Series. We're all campaigning the Lotus 79, a Formula 1 beast that we take not just around the world, but across the ovals of America. It's shown it can put on a show. The bias ply tires that are designed to last a full race distance have been tweaked for 2022. It's been the major talking point for the drivers as they work through the ovals as well as the road courses. They're driving a custom fixed setup, only in-car tools, hands and feet. How do you drive the car? They're fighting as well for their share of $7,000 in cash and prizes, while our series champion will walk away with a Next Level Racing GT track cockpit, as well as a Moser Racing direct drive wheelbase and Formula steering wheel. 2 of our Triple Crowns are done, and we will have a new series champion with Aaron Morgan's part-time schedule, along with new team champions with Avatar Auto Racing splintering up at the end of 2021. But with all that said, let's dive straight into qualifying when the pressure is on. It's time to go fast and make no mistakes. Ewan, this is when we often find the best separating themselves from the rest of the pack.
Absolutely, and I feel like at a circuit like this as well, it really is going to separate the field out even at this early stage here in qualifying. It's going to be very, very telling as to see who's up towards the front and who is down towards the back at the end of this. It's not exactly the shortest qualifying session in the world. There is a little bit of time to play with here in this one, but you do have to get your lap hooked up pretty quickly, and it's not an easy circuit to do that. It's a very twisty and technical circuit, as you commented earlier. There's not much room for error on the outside lines. You can find yourself in the grass and the gravel and the wall pretty quickly, so they'll have to be careful of that. It does make these laps ever more important as we see the first couple of times begin to come up onto the board.
Like you say, it's not a short session, 10 minutes, but 4 laps that drivers will get. You'll often see them just burn through the fuel, and the final lap is when they'll go fastest. Our points leader, provisionally third, it's David Rodriguez, setting the tempo with a 1:34.786. The top 9 split by just over 9/10 of a second. We are expecting, of course, to see a bigger delta than we traditionally do, especially on the ovals when the margins in qualifying can be hundreds, if not thousands. At tracks like these with lap times over 90 seconds, mistakes can add up, the gap will grow.
Yeah, absolutely, and this is one of those circuits, as you say, where one corner kind of leads into the next, and it leads into the next, and the next, and the next, and it just keeps on going, so you do need to get in a rhythm around here, and the fact that these guys will just be taking on that usual strategy of just, burning through the fuel and then going fast at the end, it does actually lend itself quite well to this particular circuit. It won't be particularly useful at all of the road courses around this season, but it's especially useful at this one, where you can really get into a rhythm around here, and once you are in that rhythm, you're almost like on rails, and it's almost impossible to make a mistake from that point, but getting to that point is very tricky.
As it stands right now, indications Mike Rasmas unlikely to improve this lap. David Sirwa, though, indicating into the final sector, up 2/10 and continuing to build up on what is lap number 2 of 4 in his qualifying. Just look how slow and how patient he's got to be as he rolls onto the throttle. Almost like there's a raw egg underneath the throttle, and he's trying to just make sure he tempers expectations. Reagan jumps to second. Here comes Sirwa to the line as Otis goes third. For David Sirwa to the line, he'll go pole. 1.5 splits him from Rodriguez.
Yeah, just for now, although immediately eclipsed by Matt Taylor, who's got a big gap there. If you look at the gaps inside, in and around the top 10 there, it's very, very close with second to ninth. Less than 3/10 separating those two, around 3/10, but Taylor's got 3/10 of his own out front. That is a remarkable lap.
And I've just noted as well that Michael O'Brien yet to punch in a qualifying lap time. He really is pushing the car to its limits and beyond. A driver that's been so quick in qualifying, searching for what is an elusive race victory. Let's grab a look at the RaceBot TV replay into the penultimate corner. A bit too much speed. Fortunately, that number 45 crash machine does not end up in the wall.
Yeah, pretty fortunate, and very fortunate that happened at the penultimate corner rather than the last one, because he's able to set himself up and go for another lap time immediately on the back of that, instead of at the final corner where he would not have been able to do that. However, it still will have knocked his confidence a little bit and knocked him out of rhythm, as we were talking about earlier, and who knows what he's going to be able to produce from here. Not anywhere on the left hand side of your screen really at the moment, so it's going to be a difficult session from here on in because of that rhythm business we were talking about a little bit earlier.
Watch for this driver, the RSR by butt kicker number 23. Valiokas put it on pole at Watkins Glen. It imploded from there, but tracking well out of the final corner. One lap still to go. It's a 1:34.591, good enough to jump to second. Let's ride around the Hungaroring with the RSR by butt kicker green and black machine into turn one. It's relatively flat at the apex, but the braking zone nice and bumpy. Look at the car swing out wide to build the momentum on the run down into turn number 2. DRS zone in modern Formula 1, no such contraptions here in this classic Lotus 79. O'Brien will go fastest, but Valioka sweeps to turn 3, works his way up to turn 4.
Yeah, and this is where things get particularly technical, particularly difficult for the drivers. First of all, with turn 4, which you can't see at all until you're basically there, and then turn 5, which is almost everlasting. It feels like you can never get on the throttle out there, and it always feels like you're either too early or too late. Into the chicane, which feels kind of clumsy if I'm totally honest, but you've got to negotiate it anyway. And then the real section of S's, I guess you could call them, through here with left, right once again, and particularly turn 11 right on the exit. Watch the exit curve out here. You can very easily run a bit too wide and get an off track or whatever. Looks like Valiokas has used the maximum amount of road you're allowed to there without getting an off track. He looks like he's been able to keep his lap for the moment, and then it's all about getting yourself through another bit of a clumsy section, the final few corners where you're always waiting to get onto the throttle.
Well, he's going to bail from the lap and practice a pit entry. That's also going to be very, very important for drivers to make sure they execute when the pressure is on. But for Michael O'Brien, the New Zealand native, still searching for race victory number 1. As it stands right now, it's going to be pole position number 8 that swings his way. Plenty of cars look to be peeling down onto pit road to conclude this qualifying session. For Michael O'Brien, powers out of the final corner. Can he set a benchmark for the rest of the field for the rest of this race? He improves even further. Michael O'Brien is on a roll.
He certainly is, and doesn't look like he's going to be caught, to be quite honest, in this session now. It was only a small improvement towards the end there, only a few hundredths of a second getting his nose out in front there, but I can't see anybody improving here to get above him at this stage. And either way, I only think Matt Taylor actually has the pace in the bank at the moment in this session to actually do it. You look at the gaps behind to those in 3rd, 4th, 5th, etc. Nearly half a second adrift at this stage. For my money, it really is only Taylor who could possibly knock O'Brien off that top spot, but there is time in this session.
It is Taylor left out on track, trending up 1/10 of a second so far. Through the middle of the lap he works, left and right, slinking back and forth. Ewan mentioned the curbs as well. We've seen drivers abuse them, but you've got to watch out. They are slightly more raised than you expect. They will bite if you bottom out the floor of these ground effect cars. Taylor 2/10 back into the final sector of the lap with 30 seconds left in qualifying. The teammates lock out the front row. The question is, who will bring us to the green? Is it the driver that fought tooth and nail for the championship at the end of 2021? Is it the man still searching to enter into HyperX victory lane? Seconds tick away. Here comes Taylor to the line. 34.238. It's an improvement. O'Brien still on top.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to stay that way. Once again, as you say, Taylor with a small improvement, much the same as what O'Brien did, actually, but still not enough in that session there, nowhere near. The two of them, though, going to share the front row, and I'm sure they're going to have a great fight as well throughout the 46 laps coming up tonight.
And of course, that's very important when we think about the HyperX team standings, but without further delay, we're ready to hit the halfway mark of your 2022 Lionheart Retro Series. Let's run you down through your butt kicker starting grid, and its career pole position number 8 in 27 attempts for Michael O'Brien in the 134-128 bracket, a full 10th quicker than his teammate Matt Taylor on his outside. Chris Reagan, another strong qualifying on the road courses for him. He'll be alongside Marius Valiokas in the 23 RSR by butt kicker machine, looking to get some momentum back on his side. Second in the championship, but 5th on track, David Sirwa lines up alongside the returning champion, the 2020 Retro Series King Ryan Otis, back on track, but half a second off the pole. David Rodriguez and Gabriel Wood will share row number 4. Mike Rasmus, our championship leader, is a full 8/10 off the pace. He'll be alongside Chris Fowler in the 3rd of the MadWorks Motorsports machines. Tyler Graf misses out on the top 10, but rolls from 11th with Alex Guyon alongside. Lionel Calisto sees Cristobal Valenzuela on his outside. Adam Frazier and Chris Staples roll 15th and 16th, with Rodrigo Munoz and Mark Cohn 17th and 18th positions. Behind them, completing the top 20, Luke Daniels and Chris Lanini. Series organizer Georgian Zaldo starts 21st, with Hugo Gallas in the 84 alongside him. Cody Wenzen, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, the first car with no lap time on the board, and a couple of drivers as well with end-of-line penalties to be talking of. Craig Forsyth, Fred Accord, Robert Mikes, the 28 cars locked and loaded for today's Next Level Racing Grand Prix of the Hungaroring. As always, featured onboard cameras to walk you through, and we'll also note it's a short pace lap to get underway, so we won't dial you through those onboard cameras right now. But Ewan, not much time to get tires up to temperature, not much time to get focus for the task at hand.
No, I think fortunately for some, though, not much time to get nervous about this, because it's going to be quite a thunder down in towards turn number 1, a very tight corner where we see plenty of incidents in Formula 1, for example, here at this circuit. Let's see if we get any here tonight. Let's hope not. Let's hope they all get through cleanly.
36 years ago, the Hungaroring broke ground. Now in Season 6 of the Lionheart Retro Series, the Lotus 79s head to Hungary. Michael O'Brien picks up the throttle. We're racing for the Next Level Racing Grand Prix of Hungaroring, presented by SimRace247. Taylor has to go defensive immediately. Chris Reagan fighting side by side for second, but Michael O'Brien nice and tidily leads us down into turn number 1. Taylor makes it the MadWorks Motorsports 1 and 2. Nice and tidy, 28 cars through turn 1.
Yeah, all very cleanly through indeed. Michael O'Brien with a nice lead there, having gone fairly early on the straight there. Maybe catching a few out, but certainly strung the field out quite nicely. When you get a bunched field, it can often lead to incidents into turn number 1. Thankfully, we had a more spread out field, and it was a lot cleaner. Indeed, Taylor as well, just holding on to that second place rather well. And yeah, not too much in the way of incidents happening over the first sector of this lap. Fortunately, everybody in one long line.
As always, the question with races like this is how easy is it going to be to pass? You see how tricky it is to stay close, even with Matt Taylor now a full second back from Michael O'Brien as they work themselves and wind themselves up into turn number 11. 27 cars, took the green, split by 11.3 seconds, so they are already fanning themselves out. It's another point that we'll touch on through the course of the 46-lap race. The fact that lap traffic, especially with pit strategy, is going to play its part, with fuel windows expected to be anywhere from 20 to 21 laps. Michael O'Brien has picked up right where he left off in qualifying. 1 second clear of his teammate behind. O'Brien leads lap number 1.
A really good first lap. Obviously, we talked about the start there and what an early jump he had. It was a good jump, but then on the first lap, he just absolutely hammered it, and he's gotten away from the rest of the field. If he can continue this, and Taylor gets a lot of pressure put onto him, then he's going to be smooth sailing in this race. But obviously, a lot of things have to go his way for that to be the case. It is not going to be all plain sailing for him throughout the entirety of this one, you wouldn't imagine.
Your championship leader, Mike Rasmus, tucked up behind the rear end of your rookie championship points leader, David Rodriguez, in that number 10 machine. Rasmus was able to dispatch of Gabe Wood on the opening lap of the race. Already some separation is built to those cars behind. Wood looking maybe to try and hold off Fowler, Graf, Guyon and company. Inside of the top 3, no real changes. The only swap that we saw was David Sirwa getting a great jump and getting past Valiokas. It's not going to be such a disappointing
turn of events, though, Ewan, because we know in races like this, when we're somewhat close to being able to cut out a pit stop, fuel saving will play its part, if not to cut out a stop, to make your time in pit lane just that little bit shorter.
Yeah, we think that the drivers are going to be about 4 laps short in terms of the entire race here in this one. 2 21-lap stints would get you to 42, but obviously we've still got 4 laps to go at that point. So can you save that 4 laps over the race? I think it's a little bit much personally, because yeah, it's not the longest race in the world. It's a fairly long track, over a minute and a half, and you've got to save a lot of fuel over the course of this one. If we do see somebody make lap 23, then hats off to them for making that one. But personally, I think we're more likely to see very early stops from somebody back in the pack. We've already noted how difficult it is to overtake around here, and we're already seeing that really writ large for us right now. Are we going to see somebody come in really, really early in this race, make their short stop as their first one or as their second, and then maybe get out of position as we see Rodriguez just recovering from some sort of incident going down towards turn 1?
Yeah, he's dropped 7 spots to 14th and now tries to look to the inside, maybe the 96 and Chris Staples through turn 2 they'll go. David Rodriguez, was it an uncharacteristic self-mistake? Was it assisted by maybe those around him? We'll find out, but that RSR by butt kicker car definitely smoked the rears up as he worked his way back onto the racing surface. So we work lap 3 of 46, and David Rodriguez, more dramas for him at the top of the hill as they work through the hairpin off the track again. He slots down to 17th.
Yeah, having a terrible time of things at the moment. Just needs to get his head down here a little bit and get back to where he was before, because obviously he's having a great season, his first full season, at least in the Lionheart Retro Series, really storming away with that rookie championship. Just needs to kind of keep his head down, as I say, and just keep picking up those points. This is what happened to him, first of all. Maybe a little bit surprised by the car in front braking a tiny bit early, maybe getting a little bit closer to the car in front of him than he was maybe expecting, and it frightened him a little bit by the looks of things, just locking the rears on the way in, and he's given himself a lot of work to do now.
Well, I think just from the look that we had at the other moment as well, through the hairpin, both of those self-inflicted mistakes, there's the look, and you see the wobble. There's no one really around him. That was good control to just manage to keep it on the straight and narrow. Look on board.
Yeah, this is all arms and elbows, isn't it? Just gets on that curb on the outside line. We talked about them a little bit earlier on. You can use them to your advantage, but they are a little bit more deadly than you might think. And that one on the outside of turn 4, I think, is the worst of them, in my opinion, because the car's so unweighted over the hill there, over the crest of the hill, and it's obviously a very fast and committed corner anyway. That outside curb can sometimes throw you off immediately into the inside wall, and Rodriguez, frankly, did a very good job to keep his car from that barrier.
Looks like as well the left side of the front wing showing some wear for the Rodriguez number 10, so it's going to be an uphill fight for him. Still a long way to go in this one, indicated at about 65 minutes if we go green from this point forward. The front of the field, Madworks Motorsports 1 and 2, but split by 1.7 seconds. O'Brien has settled into the rhythm quite nicely. Taylor as well. It's Reagan that's very much playing the party spoiler or party friend, depending on which side you're on, but David Sirra, Valiokis, and even Ryan Otis trying to search for a way to climb on past that number 19 machine. Sirra came into this championship in 2021 known as maybe the road course ringer. He's built up his speed on the ovals, but this is where his bread and butter will lie.
He will, but he needs to get past Reagan if he wants to use any of it at the moment. If we're looking at qualifying times purely, it did look like it was going to be O'Brien and Taylor battling it between themselves and everybody else scrapping for places behind, and that's exactly what's happened at the moment. So I don't think we can blame Reagan too much for this at the moment. Sirra might well be, but I don't think we can blame Reagan too much. I do just think those top two have a little bit of an edge when compared to the rest of the field. Taylor, though, has done a good job to get himself out of this little fight here, because if he got dragged into it, then it would have been O'Brien basically rolling out the red carpet for him here in this race.
The Hollywood-style treatment, yes. That's not necessarily what we expect to see in this retro series, when it's been difficult to pass on the road courses since late 2021. There was a reworking of the tire and aero model that saw, for example, Silverstone be rather stagnant in terms of the on-track fighting. It was the strategy where we saw potential switch-arounds happen, so will be in the mind of the drivers. Don't necessarily expect to see too many tire stops today with these bias ply tires, of course, designed to go a full race distance. So this is third on back. Reagan now 4 seconds separated from your race leader. It looks like Lionel Callisto is at a moment where he's gone off the track. He's down in 12th position. We of course checked in with Rodriguez a couple of moments ago. At the very least, he's fighting back quite well, has disposed of Mark Cohn in clinical fashion. He's 1.8 clear and closing on Fraser for 15th.
Yeah, he might well be the primary entertainment for the next 10-15 laps or so, because he'll certainly be looking to make his way back through the field and back inside the top 10 where he was before. I think he was running, just around that kind of 7th, 8th kind of position in the running order. And that's where he deserves to be, really, in terms of the pace and what he's shown so far this season, what he's shown in qualifying, and the early point of this race as well. He just deserves to be there, so he'll be interesting to watch, fighting through the field, and it'll be a good example to everybody else as to how to make moves around here, because it's not easy.
He's also somewhat, for his teammate Valiokas in that number 23, going to be the benchmark maybe for tyre wear and what you can do in strategy when you have the offset of cars, one not scoring as many points as they would like. You have that flexibility to send them out on the contra strategy, to get the data, to get the feedback over to the car that sits in 5th, albeit that 23 has slipped now to 5 seconds adrift from your race leader. So we're in the rhythm, we're in the groove. Remember, 20 laps, our estimated fuel window, so we're about a quarter of the way through there. All 27 cars, at least for now, pointed on track in the right direction. So with it somewhat having settled down, I always say that because I know that as soon as we say that, it's going to kick off in intensity. Let's now run you down through our featured onboard cameras for today's Next Level Racing Grand Prix of the Hungaroring, presented by SimRace247. David Rodriguez carries the Moser Racing onboard camera, redefining sim racing. Go further, go faster with Moser Racing. Visit moserracing.com.
Absolutely. Mike Rasmus also in the 68 at the moment. HyperX onboard camera. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game.
Of course, the beauty of sim racing, data transfer limitations, not a factor for us. We've got onboard cameras and a vast number of them across all 27 cars, as well as track cameras placed all around the track, courtesy of our friend Dougie Beard, as always working very, very hard. I always mention this when we talk about cameras here in the virtual world. I was doing a broadcast with someone who works on the 24 Hours of Le Mans broadcast in the real world. We had a camera angle up. He's like, wait, can you go back to that camera angle? I need a picture of that to send to the television director so we can get that at the Mulsanne as soon as possible. It's one of those things that we love about sim racing, the exploration, the experimentation that you can do, and maybe no stronger a example of how that works, Ewan, is the fact that NASCAR is going to the streets of Chicago, a layout designed and scanned first by iRacing and validated here for everyone to test.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's the first time I can remember anything like that ever happening, so it's fantastic to see. I mean, in terms of the camera thing, obviously it does help that you don't have to pay for an actual camera and someone to stand behind it.
Yes.
So that does help, but credit where credit's due, of course, to all of the guys who provide the cameras for us, especially at Racepot TV, of course. But yeah, it does help in that respect. But it is fantastic to have all of these different angles, and we basically don't miss anything, even in these long endurance races, which of course we've got one of which we've got coming up this weekend. We almost never miss anything in terms of the action. Even if we don't catch it live, we can go back and view it from whatever angle, so that's always helpful as we see possibly the opening of the early pit stops.
Yeah, now this is maybe not unexpected, but for Alex Guyon was mired down in 13th, 14th position. He'll come onto pit road and see where he can get up and go from here. I also noted Lionel Callisto has only lost one position, but he's had another little excursion off the track. It seems to be increasingly common, almost completely makes a mess out of turn number 2. Opens the door potentially for Valenzuela to look around the outside, but that would be brave. You definitely don't want to stick your nose to the outside line there. Well, think better of that one. That 97 just not looking comfortable.
Really not looking comfortable, and you can see by the cars backed up right behind Callisto here that this is becoming very tricky now, and Rodriguez is going to be fancying his chances to have a look here and maybe get a bit of an overtake in. But yeah, it's very, very difficult out there at the moment. There's the spin into or half spin, I guess you could call it, into turn number 1, I suppose. But I really like that call from Guyon, just mired in the pack, frustrated and unable to overtake. I think he's accepted the fact nobody's making this race on one stop, in my opinion. And so get out of traffic, get on your own, and make a short pit stop early, and you might just reap the benefits a little bit later on.
Just looking at where he is right now, he's only, though, come out remarkably 3 seconds behind the pack at the tail end of the pack, so it's got him into a bubble. We'll see how well able the 08 is able to work his way forward, with Brett Accord, Robert Mikes, Cody Wenzen going to be his first targets up in line. Still 1.7, 1.8 splitting O'Brien and Taylor. Not really too much of a separation for lap time. They're going back and forth, trading tenths here and there. But the gap has built up to Chris Reagan. David Siwa still unable to find a way through the impenetrable door that is the 19. I wonder, for the 99, of course, teammates with Alex Guyon, is it going to go through his mind the option to come down to pit lane? There is a small buffer of clean air that he might be able to come out into.
Yeah, I think it's more difficult for these guys at the front, isn't it? Because they're definitely going to come out in the mid-pack, and they might not find themselves in a better situation than what they're in right now, even if this one's not great. So I'm just beginning to wonder whether Sirois is actually... Is he stuck here, or is he voluntarily here at the moment? Is he just waiting for his moment here in this race? So with any race, you don't want to be going hell for leather and straight out the gate in terms of your overtake. You don't want maximum aggression as if it's the last lap every lap. But I'm just wondering whether he's really toning this one down just for the moment and staying behind Reagan. Although if an opportunity presents itself, I'm sure he's not going to pass that one up, and there might be one here with that little mistake through the penultimate corner.
Yeah, Reagan just lit up the rear tyres. I wonder if he's just struggling with the traction of the staggered big rear tyres that we've got. Ciro will have a look to the inside, half committing, doesn't really send it. The defense was on display though from the 19. Usually, modern Formula 1, that's a DRS zone. You'd open the rear wing, you get some extra speed, you'd launch it down the inside. There's no gamesmanship like that for these drivers. They've got to get it done the hard way.
Absolutely. Good old days, as some would say. I wouldn't be able to comment, but yeah, it's the old-fashioned way, trying to make make your way through. But it's fantastic. These cars are fantastic, and I'm sure you've been listening on from at home. The sound of them is really, really nice, and the racing we're having as well throughout the season has been great. Although it's difficult to pass around here, of course, it's less of a car thing, in my opinion, more of a or track thing, maybe a combination, but certainly down to the track just that little bit. And Sirois is finding that out at the moment as they continue to lose time to the leaders.
Hey, the reality is as well, with a third of this opening half of the season being new tracks, you won't know how it's going to race until you've actually gone and raced there. So at the very least, we've tried stuff. We went to Nashville Super Speedway as well, that unique concrete surface that shreds tires. It was a bit of a snoozer for the IndyCar series. A lot more entertaining for this retro series though. Brands Hatch, hit or miss. We'll see what the rest of the season has in store for us as we'll make our first trips to the likes of Twittering Motegi's Grand Prix layout, as well as the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, who will end up in the Wall of Champions, I'm sure, at least one, if not more. Siwa's closer this time by. Reagan can't pinch him. It will be the Canadian that slides to the inside. Siwa finally gets on through, but the damage is done. 7-8 seconds away from your race leader.
Yeah, the damage really is done. Reagan is about to inflict a bit more as well by going on the attack a little bit into turn 2. Outside line, swinging back in for a better one through 3, although he's going to be very brave to try and make a move through here at any point. So yeah, I think once Cyril saw that little mistake from Reagan one lap ago at the penultimate corner, he sort of smelled blood in the water, if you like, and he definitely knew that position was up for grabs and wanted to take it as quickly as possible. Was a little bit more aggressive maybe into turn 1 than he has been on previous laps, and so now he is through. And we'll just be able to see, was it Reagan really being a bit of a cork in the bottle here, or is everybody just a little bit slower than those top two? We'll really find out soon here, because now we've got a new driver leading the pack. Are they able to make any inroads on that top two? But as you say, the damage is already done.
We did see as well Mike Rasmus have a look to the inside to try and maybe think on a move over the 95 of Ryan Otis. And for Rasmus, when I think of him now, I'm struck by the similarities to what we had maybe in 2021 as Reagan still backs himself up, this time into Valiokas of the 23. Of course, Razmas led the championship at the halfway marker of 2021, but by the time we got down to business time, the double point season finale, it was all about Aaron Morgan versus Matt Taylor. A lot more confident Razmas in 2022. How does he convert that to a potential championship? Has the lunge, the look down low through turn one, but Ryan Otis has none of it. Razmas stays in 7th.
He'll have to for the moment, and I think he'll be, well, certainly if I was in his place, I'd be pretty pleased to be there right now. You're very much in the conversation for some good points here. No point in going for a really dangerous move to make up one place there, so I think he's in a good place. And of course, we've got 2 pit stops for this field to shake up and shake out as well. So I would be waiting on those a little bit more than the on-track overtakes, at least for the first stint of the race.
We talk about pit stops, we talk about pit stop execution, but remember, these old cars, no pit limiter. If you're a tad over your right foot, a little bit too greedy, you'll be in a world of pain. It is something that we will see, and very curious if someone like Valiokas, the 23, pole position at Watkins Glen, but got a pit road penalty for speeding, if he's learnt the lesson, if he's figured out exactly how to execute when it needs to be done. The gap has grown. It's a full second now that's increased. Sirwan 9 seconds back and climbing. Maybe Reagan, not the cork in the bottle, maybe the top 2, the class of the field here today.
Yeah, I absolutely think so. I don't think any of these 5 at the moment on your screen can really make any inroads into those top 2, and I don't think many people will be able to match Michael O'Brien here. Taylor's struggling himself, but all of these 5 are roughly at the same pace as each other, and it is slower than that of the top 2. So the pit stops is really where this is going to happen in terms of shaking up. But I do think we are going to have a great race for third between these guys. While it might be a bit of a Michael O'Brien show at the front, we're going to get a good fight for the latter positions on the podium at least.
David Rodriguez's recovery gets him past. Cristobal Valenzuela has not really made up ground in numbers just yet, but we'll track the 10 and our RSR by Buttkeeger number 10 to see how he's able to work his way forward. At Taylor, fastest last time by, a 1:34.030. We're getting faster and faster as the fuel burns off. We'll turn this car into a rocket ship on lower fuel. It really just takes off and goes. See what lap times will be like in about 6 or so laps time. Of course, this series is not just about the racing, it's about the community as well. And we'll get back to that. Chris Lanini, not where you want to be slow, that is for sure. The exit of turn 3, that's a high-speed place to spin yourself around.
He found himself very slow on the apex of turn 4 there as well, which is not ideal. But everybody managed to get around him nicely, and they can all stay in the race, but just drops outside the top 20. They're just lenient, struggling a little bit with oversteer as well. Be interesting to see how this even happened, because turn 3 is not really a corner, and it should be flat out completely, but just seemed to lose it completely on his own. Nobody around him.
We'll get the look on board with the black and yellow 92. Oop, too much curb. Bottoms out the car again. We said you can take the curves. They are quite high, so don't risk it too much. Lap traffic a factor now for this battle further down the field, I think that was. No, excuse me, that was Alex Guillon disposing of George Zaldo. Michael O'Brien will have to start dealing with traffic at some point. Already 60 seconds now clear of the last car on track. So give it about 7 more laps. Expect traffic to become a factor. To get back to the point that I was making earlier, it's not just about the racing. The series is very much a community as well. It has been a couple of years since drivers of the Lionheart Racing Series have been able to meet up in person, but this coming weekend, as the NTT IndyCar Series heads to a doubleheader at Iowa, our competitors are ready to put down the rivalries, pick up the food, pick up the imbibements for the evening, and meet and celebrate racing once more. And it's what I enjoy about some of these series, Ewan, is the fact that, yes, they race each other hard day after day, week after week, but they know it's all virtual. It's all about the friendships you make along the way.
It absolutely is, and these community events, of course, are great to see people you have known online for years, of course, if it is indeed the first time seeing them, etc. And yeah, it's great to be at an event like that anyway. But to go with some friends as well in terms of the community that you built up here at Lionheart, for example, and yeah, it's absolutely fantastic to see that going on, and glad to see that we actually can do that now after the last couple of years we've had. It's not really been possible recently, but yeah, things like this are starting to become more common again.
It did feel a little bit weird, I'm not going to lie, being in Indy for the 500 this year, surrounded by 350,000 odd people. Yeah, that was a stark reminder of how different the last 2 years have been, of course, and it's not just about the meetups, but these drivers will get together. There are 2 practice races in the build-up to all of these events, so they get the opportunity to go out in race conditions with full fuel tanks and drivers around them to see what dirty air is like. They're very much always in communication with one another. It makes the fights when they happen maybe just a little bit more spectacular. O'Brien continues to find speed. I don't know from where. 33.856 last time around. Taylor 34.044. He has stolen the fastest lap back, but it's fair to say O'Brien just got to hold on right now. It's not going to be strategy. There's no way that that's going to play a factor. Maybe Taylor will have the pace. O'Brien has got the golden opportunity to work his way to HyperX victory lane.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in a fight like this where O'Brien and Taylor have barely been 2 tenths apart in terms of their lap times throughout the last few laps. I mean, there was 5 tenths there, but that was a particularly fast lap from Michael O'Brien, fastest lap of the race once again on lap 15 there. But when you're in such a close fight in terms of the amount of time you can actually lose over a lap, you really do just have to keep it on the road and keep doing what you're doing at that stage. It very much is Michael O'Brien's day. It's in his hands at this stage, even though we're still in the first half of this race. It is very much in his hands at this stage, and it's going to come down between those two. Really, they clearly do know something around here that everybody else doesn't, because they're a class above everybody else today.
I don't know what it is, but I always feel so bad when I have to interview Michael. He's finished P2, and I'm like, what do you need to do, my friend? You've got the speed, you just need the luck. It's going in his direction here today. What a drive so far, a long way to go. We'll be hoping this is not the commentator's curse, but if you believe in the words of Lewis McLeod, which I'd question your judgment if you did, there's no such thing as the commentator's curse. There is only bad driving. He very much lives by those words. Let's talk you through very quickly then as well, as we're heading into that cycle of pit stops, your Moser Racing driver profile. It's our most recent series winner, Mike Razmas, coming off the double points victory at the 2022 Butt Kicker Indy 250. 37 career starts with 7 victories to his name. Began on a road course, but the first victory for him came on the oval, short track racing at the Worldwide Technology Raceway. Since then, it's been a mix-up. Razmas has shown speed on the ovals and the road courses alike, but with 32 top 10 finishes, the one thing Razmas is above everything is consistent.
He absolutely is, and the most remarkable statistic there on the right-hand side that to me at least, it may not jump out at you initially, but the fact that he's only finished outside the top 10 5 times in that 37 starts kind of window, that's a lot of races to finish inside the top 10. It's got him into 4th place on the all-time list for top 10s and only 5 non-top 10s in that one. So yeah, really astonishing, that record from Razmas, and that's exactly why he's points leader at the moment.
I'm very curious how he deals with this pressure of expectation. One thing that will, of course, help him is the fact that it depends on how you look at it. It's a positive and a negative to some, but he's missed a race, and of the 18 rounds, 2 of the championship points that you score across each of the rounds will be dropped. So your 2 lowest points totals are dropped. In some ways, it means that you've got to perform because you don't have the benefit of having another drop week to play with. But in some other ways, I think for drivers fighting for championships, Ewan, it gives them the extra motivation to drive smart, because it's all fine and dandy to risk it and be aggressive, but consistency wins championships, and that's what Mike Razmas has to focus on. Chris Fowler gets in front of Gabe Wood in the battle for 8th.
Yeah, there he is, just getting up into 8th place. But just to your point about Rasmus there, I think if consistency wasn't key and it was all about, you know, winning or something, Rasmus would have made a few moves by this point in this group. He would have, made a few attempts at overtakes, as Wood is continuing to maybe go backwards at this stage. Late on the brakes around the outside through turn 1. He's going to hold on to that place. Valiokas as well, getting through on Reagan, who's now starting to just slip and slide in this group ever so slightly. This battling is allowing the 99 to get away, as well as Ryan Otis fancies his chances as well.
Why would you do that? Too wide, but they make it work. Chris Reagan around the outside of turn number 4. That is iRacing top 10 worthy. Given how much that car has been struggling and sliding around, that took confidence, that took gumption.
Never see that around the outside of turn 4, but we just did from Chris Reagan. That was unbelievable, just getting up on the outside line there, having the presence to just do that, give the room, but also was given the room, and fair play to Valiokas for doing that. But wow, what a remarkable battle between those two, absolutely fantastic. And these two are going to fight even harder from this point on, surely, but we're probably not going to see anything like that again.
If we do, I won't believe it. I don't believe we've seen it once. I am still in shock and awe. Is that a car committing to pit road? It was. Mike Rasmus will bail at the very beginning of the pit window. 18 laps complete. The championship leader rolls to pit road.
He does indeed, and this is exactly what I was expecting from him, actually. He does need to get out of traffic a little bit and maybe make a shorter pit stop at this stage to get out of traffic a little bit and maybe get up the order that way, as we're seeing carbon copy almost once again, this time into turn 1 for Valiokas. Will he make it stick this time? Chris Reagan just gives him a little bit of trouble into turn 2, but I don't think he's going to be able to repeat his turn 4 heroics.
It's all about this exit, though, out of turn 3. This time, Valiokas a good momentum carried through the corner. Reagan not close enough to challenge. I am still just in shock about that move. And the fighting to some degree will have helped David Sirwa out. Yes, he's 13 seconds adrift from your race leader, but he's 3 seconds clear of this battle. Lionel Callisto, another car around at the bottom of turn 3. Clearly very difficult to work your way through the corner.
Yeah, you kind of got to thread the needle there, really, even though it is kind of easily flat out. You do have to get not too far on the right hand side curve, and you can't run out too far wide either. So it is a bit of a thread in the needle job, but it is a bit of a surprise to see a couple of cars going around there at such a non-corner, if you like. But either way, it can get challenging as mental fatigue starts to come into it midway throughout this race, especially when you're on your own, I find.
O'Brien 33.494 onto pit road. Looks like Ryan Otis will blink as well. Valiokas and Reagan continue their fight. O'Brien and Taylor are the fastest two, and by some margin 3/10 quicker than David Sirwa last time around. Let's grab another look at a potential move of the season candidate. On board with Ryan Otis, Reagan uses all the track on offer and then some as well. Valiokas left the room completely awestruck by the confidence.
Yeah, I mean, if that's not overtake of the season, then I want to see what is, because this is so unbelievable. As I said, you just never see this. You never even see it attempted. And to be fair to Valiokas on the inside there, maybe slowed up a little bit more than he needed to, but he was fearful of clattering into the side of the car on the outside there, and gave Reagan enough room to do that. Valiokas could have very easily run him out of road there, and we would have seen exactly that from a lot of drivers, especially these days. You just run the car on the outside out of road, but Valiokas was fully prepared to give Reagan the room, give him the time of day to even attempt that. But what a remarkable thing to see, the fact that he's even pulled it off, even attempted it, never mind actually made it.
It's the willingness to go for the move that is maybe surprising, but with 19 laps complete coming to the end of lap 20, O'Brien and Taylor will lead the field into pit lane. O'Brien has controlled the race so far. Can he avoid making a mistake on pit road? Can he avoid slipping back in the field? Now, do we see the rest of the field streak on down? Taylor will come in as well. Sirwa looks like he's committed. Valiokas and Reagan are trying to stretch it.
They are. I mean, it's not going to do them much good, to be honest, but it's not going to do them much harm either, staying out another extra lap here, because, I mean, what is there to lose for them at this stage? We are still early on, and, you know, going an extra lap in terms of making it to the end is still not going to be possible, even if they get to the end of lap 21. So, you know, they do have to, they're not going to lose out or gain much, but Michael O'Brien certainly has found himself in a very ideal situation here, not even finding himself in traffic after the pit stop phase. Him basically running that tank dry there is a very good idea, really, because it will reduce the chances of him finding himself in traffic today. And
to illustrate the dominance that we've seen from him, he's pitted and come out in third. Yes, a couple of the cars behind have boxed. I think maybe we're looking at 9, definitely less than 10. He's emerged in third position with plenty of clean air in hand. What more can you say? Half the race still to go. It's looking all smiles for New Zealand's own Michael O'Brien as we roll around on lap 21. Valiokas has broken away from Reagan as they come towards the end of their pit cycle as well. They'll be down to lane potentially this lap, at the very latest next lap. Valiokas 2 and a bit seconds to the good now, continues to run away, and I think the day has finally come to an end for Lionel Kalisto as we see Valiokas and Reagan roll to pit road. The maybe third or fourth incident that's involved that 97 car finally sees our first retirement of the day. Yeah, finally throwing in the towel after a very difficult day. It's a difficult circuit and a difficult car to get around here, and so it's not too surprising to see first retirement of the day, quite possibly, but we'll wait and see on that one as the remaining drivers come into the pit lane, waiting to see if anybody's going to be able to go out for another lap here. I very much doubt it, going to the end of lap 22. That was a very short stop from Valiokas. 5.9 seconds compares to 7.7 for O'Brien, 9 seconds for Taylor. There is some strategy going on with how cars are dicing up the pit road segment. Sorry to have cut you off there, Ewan, but we love a good pit road battle. We love a good strategy fight. It's what we're in for today. Left side of the screen, we will show you the pit stop time for the drivers. The variance is notable. Very notable, and this is the great thing with the fuel situation the way it is with these cars and with the length of these races. It leaves a huge window for manoeuvre, and so you can really get these short pit stops early. We'll get very short ones later on with guys coming in possibly with about 3 laps to go here in this race. So it really gives a lot of wiggle room for the drivers, and so when you're trying to get out of traffic or whatever, you can use that short pit stop. When you're very much where you want to be, you can obviously fill up the whole way in the first stop. And even O'Brien, who was leader in this one and was probably always going to come out in the lead anyway, he decided to knock a second or two off of his stop as well. So it really is a great thing about the fuel situation and the length of these races and the way it's all set up. Leaves a lot of strategic interest for us. To highlight the difference for Reagan and Valiokas, boxed on the same lap. One car 5.9 stationary, the other car 9 seconds stationary. It is not insignificant. Ryan Otis will get past Chris Reagan. We look at Siraj and Razmas winding up for yet another lap as we continue to work through this race. Half distance next time by. Michael O'Brien continues to lead the way. Taylor second, Valiokas in third. It's Siraj and Razmas fighting for fourth, fighting to close up as well. I saw a moment for Alex Guyon, but let's turn our attention to the RaceSpot TV replay machine. Let's see what's taken Lionel Kalisto out of the race. Again, just a little too much curb. Yeah, a bit too much curb on that chicane there. You can get away with it at the first part there, very much so, but orange sausage curb on the inside for the second part is not really your friend, I'm afraid, as Kalisto found out there and throws in the towel, as I say. Probably that was coming really for him because he was having a difficult day anyway. But Razmas is not exactly having a too difficult day at the moment. The way this pit stop phase has worked out once again, he's found himself in the top 5 and we'll just have to consolidate this. And I think this is about where he'll finish really in this race. It's going to be a push for him to get the podium. We will see how hard he is willing to push, how much he is willing to risk. Of course, we mentioned a moment that might be significant as when lap traffic starts to be a factor. I don't think it's such a concern just yet. I saw Robert Mikes peeling off to pit road out of the way of Michael O'Brien, who did lose a couple of tenths last time across the line, but some clean air again for the 45. Lap times have ballooned back up. We've stacked these cars full of fuel once more. And once these cars get heavy, they tend to bog down a little bit more. Lap times have gone from 33.494s to O'Brien with a 34.348 last time by.
Yeah, we're about a second off the very best at this stage, especially for O'Brien. Valiokas has really come out with a good head of steam here, but of course you've got to remember his short pit stop will not only gain him time in terms of the actual stationary time there, it also means his car's lighter right now. And so that's why he's going a little bit quicker, not trying to distract anything from his talent and his actual driving, but he is driving with a lighter car at the moment, and this might be an opportunity where he can make some inroads into O'Brien and Taylor, although he will be stationary for longer at the second part.
It's why the strategy calls become significant, because you very much will give something up for the call that you make. It is not a win-win situation. There are compromises. There is no perfect strategy that will see you to the end of the race. Alex Guyon was one of the first cars to pit, but he's been taken out in a moment here down into turn one. One of the Backfire Motorsports cars rolls off a pit lane. It is a dangerous place to rejoin the racing line. Guyon aggressive to the inside of turn one, and contact was had.
Yeah, kind of didn't realise there were three wide there with the car coming out the pit lane, and it is a bit awkward always going down in towards turn one. On the pit entry there, on the pit exit, you're so narrow on the way into turn one. You see the way the white line there just really pinches the cars into very late on in the corner. You can't really swing back to the racing line at all. And so it does create those pinching moments, and it does mean that those moments into turn one do happen quite often. Unfortunately, as Razumas just looked to make his way down the inside and towards turn one, hopefully with less contact than we just saw there. It's a nice dive to the apex, and it's a pretty easy move in the end, really. Although
no contact here, but you just had to mention contact, and David Rodriguez, I think, has gone around again.
It looks like he might have done outside the top 10 again, and he's in amongst a lot of different cars. Silra's not been able to get back through, and Razumas here, so he'll have to stay behind in fifth position just for the moment. But yeah, we'll hopefully get a look at, in a couple of moments, at what happened down there to Rodriguez, who is having an eventful day. We can't fault him for providing us with action here today.
He won't be one to complain about the lack of action at the Hungaroring, just the lack of luck. Let's take a look at the RSR by butt kicker number 10, just sliding through the penultimate corner. You can already see how much he's thrashing that car. Tyler Graf is behind him, and he's going to lose it by himself. I almost think that he tried to downshift too aggressively there, just looking at how quickly the car steps around on him.
I reckon he might have been on the grass on the way in. You want to open this final corner out as much as possible for that run onto the home straight. Yeah, grass. It's got to be grass. I mean, I'd be surprised if you even do downshift there, at least at that transition point. Anyway, you don't really want to be changing gear while you're doing that really big change of direction. Because obviously you're trying to get your car to the left-hand side there to open this corner out as much as possible while not getting on the grass and downshifting. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, it's not simple, is it?
No, absolutely not. And it's not a modern car either. It's obviously a different way of driving to what we see nowadays, and in the IndyCar series we have at Lionheart as well. It's
not your traditional Sunday drive, that is for sure. Much harder than your current day Formula 1 cars, albeit in a slightly different way. Rodriguez has been dropped back in front of Gabe Wood in the 04, who has lost ground in this race so far. Both Rodriguez and Wood sliding back 4 positions from where they started. Valenzuela's in 13th. You wonder if race control is going to have a look at the moment that he had with Alex Guyon either during or post-race. Might be something that he's going to be thinking about. Frazier's going to be concerned as well. And for RSR by butt kicker, Marius Valiokas looks to be out of this race.
That's really disappointing for him. He was having a great run in third place, chasing down those front two just briefly while he was on that lighter car, on that alternate strategy, of course, spending little time stationary at that first particular pit stop.
Oh, there's damage.
And there is damage. You can see it from here. This camera shot's a long way off, but you can see already that there is front end damage, and you just see it sometimes doesn't look like these cars are actually pushing to the limit very often because of the way they are a bit slower than the modern cars, but they absolutely are, and I think we're going to see a demonstration of that when we get a replay of Valiokis' demise, unfortunately.
I forget who it is. It might have been Keegan Leahy, the 2021 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series champion, that said when he wants to decompress, the combo that he will launch here on iRacing is this Lotus 79 around the Green Hell, the flowing and treacherous Nordschleifer. It is one of the most fun cars that you can find, but there's a reason why we don't see too much of it. The danger that it presents. Gabe Wood, Cristobal Valenzuela almost had a moment there as Gabe Wood will roll down to pit road in what is a rather early call for him. He's only been on track for 5 laps, and I didn't see that he had a particularly short pit stop down on pit road. Guyon sees the door slammed shut by Valenzuela. These two had contact before. They've got to watch their P's and Q's this time by.
Yeah, they'll have to be a bit more careful than they were previously. Valenzuela was so focused on the defensive line there, he very nearly missed his braking point, but he just about put it up in time. And he does the same again into turn 2. Guyon going to try and make his way through. But once again, as I said earlier on, he was obviously in the pit stops quite early. His car's probably a bit lighter at this stage for Guyon, so with the tyres not really a factor in these races anymore, he certainly will be looking to make his way through here, regardless of the actual pace of the actual cars. That Guyon's car will just be lighter, and so he should be able to make his way through.
And his pit window has opened, we can point that out. He's working lap 19, would not be shocked if we see him down onto pit road in the next couple of laps. Well, let's figure out what happened to the 23. The always quick on a road course, Marius Valiokas bottoms over the curb, snaps left, and this time, unlike what we saw before, there was no stopping that car from going into the wall.
Yeah, it's so tricky, and it's so easy to find yourself on the left-hand side, and it just illustrates what a good job Rodriguez did to not end up in this situation. Just see a little bit wide on the way in, but, I mean, it's millimetre differences here. Really small differences. He was just ever so slightly too far out to the right-hand side there, and it's caused him to basically be out of this race. He's not out, but yes, he is. He has actually retired. So, yeah, he is actually out of the race. But, yeah, I mean, it's so disappointing for him. He was definitely a shoo-in for third place. You just sit here. The curb kind of levels off and tails off towards the right-hand side there, and if you're just a tiny bit too far to the right, you end up in that left-hand side wall, and that's what's happened to Valiokas. Really a shame for him.
And you point out as well, quite rightly, it happened to his teammate David Rodriguez. Now, if this was an open setup competition, we'd be debating, is there something with that setup? Is it running too low? Are they being too aggressive with some of the settings that they can do to find speed? But because everyone is racing with the same setup, the only difference is the driver input control. We wonder if maybe just a little bit too much risk-taking from the RSI by butt kicker teammates.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's so sudden as well, the way the cars snap away. It almost can't be something to do with the setup, unless you've really done something terribly wrong, like one of mine. It's
or mine, to be fair.
Yeah, we can't laugh, really. But it's so sudden that it's got to be kind of an external factor, really. Obviously, we can say that comfortably now, given that this is obviously a fixed setup. Or custom fixed setup, I should say, in this series. We can say that with peace of mind, but you know, it's such a sudden movement that it almost has to be that curb on the outside line. See, these drivers will be learning things here and there about the Hungaroring. It's still not the newest circuit on iRacing anymore, but it is one of the newer ones, and there will still definitely be things to learn about this place.
And to be fair to Valiokas, he's done basically the only thing he can do, which is shake himself off, pick it up, and he'll go again in a week's time, when we head to Iowa for another round of this 2022 Lionheart Retro Series. But you're watching RaceSpot TV. You're watching the Next Level Racing Grand Prix of the Hungaroring, presented by SimRace247. We'll be back on RaceSpot TV with the run to the checkered flag after a message from our partners here from Lionheart Racing Series.
With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker, the future is feeling.
Welcome back to RaceSpot TV and round 9 of your 2022 Lionheart Retro Series. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, joined in the RaceSpot TV commentary booth by the one and only Ewan O'Leary as we get set to hit the halfway mark of this 2022 campaign. It's been a difficult and intense opening half of this race, but drivers have settled into the rhythm. We've traveled to Hungary for the very first time for the Next Level Racing Grand Prix of the Hungaroring. Ewan, one driver has dominated the race so far, but with one final cycle of pit stops still left to play out and questions remaining about what strategies are going to work, there are still plenty of questions still yet to be answered.
There certainly are. It's all Michael O'Brien at the moment, and I can't see that changing, but behind it certainly will change throughout the remaining pit stop cycle, which is already underway and sort of unfolding as things stand. 15 laps to go right now. We're well inside that pit window where you can make it to the end from here, and so we expect to see those happen over the next few moments, especially those who had a really long stop at the first cycle.
There is your race leader. Let's pick up some moments of drama while we stepped aside, and third time we've seen that happen. Brett Accord is the one that falls victim to the curb on the outside of turn number 4. Yet another driver makes the mistake, and while we watch that, your championship leader boxes early. Mike Rasmus down on pit lane.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised. It was a tiny bit of a shorter pit stop for him last time around, but he clearly knows that he can make it to the end from here, as they all can. So he's off on his way now, but two kind of medium-length pit stops for him rather than going for a short and a long one, which seems to have been the strategy adopted by a fair few of these drivers. A tiny pocket of clean air for him to get into there as well. I wonder if that was factored into his thinking or whether that is purely consequential.
Don't forget as well that he's come out into clean air, which is going to be important. 2 seconds behind David Rodriguez, who is only halfway through his stint. In fact, all of those in front basically on the same cycle of pit stops. Christopher Valenzuela rolls on pit lane as well. There is, pit stop time, 7.9 for the points leader as we work closer to the run-in for the championship. O'Brien continues to lead, but there's some lap traffic, and we mentioned that it's going to be a factor. 27 started this race, 16 are left on the lead lap. They are falling like flies.
Yeah, they're falling by the wayside at this stage, and there's a lot of cars fairly close to becoming one lap down as well. In the battle for 11th, they're not really in a battle at the moment, although they are a few seconds apart. O'Brien's going to have to pick his way through all of those guys before the end of this race, I think, because there's still 14 laps to go as we run right now. And those guys are going to get picked off. You can't quite see them in the distance just yet, but I think by the end of this race, he is going to have to make his way through them. And that is the last remaining bit of hope, really, for Matt Taylor if he wants to win this race, which of course he does. At nearly 9 seconds adrift, he's not going to catch that on pure pace in any race, never mind this one.
It was, a 2 second odd delta, 2.3 in the pit stops last time by O'Brien. Quicker, we'd expect him down first. But yeah, even if it's a 2.3 second swing the other direction, it's going to take a miracle. Of course, the two split by just 3 points in the championship coming into this one. Taylor third ahead of his teammate Michael O'Brien, but they'll inch closer to Mike Rasmus at least if it cycles out the way it's been trending so far today. Let's pick up a couple more incidents that happened while we stepped aside. This one involves Chris Lanini, and I think again it's the third or fourth time we've seen a car a little bit too committed into turn 1, looping it around. The Backfire Motorsports machine rolling off pit road. Rather lucky in that situation.
Yeah, just a little bit. It doesn't help that when you do go for a spin round there through turn 1, they really light the rear tyres up and create a real smoke screen for you, so that's not helpful, but it is a good way of getting the car back around again.
Could be worse. It could be the Romain Grosjean at Spain. Was it Romain Grosjean at Spain?
It was, yes.
Okay.
Like a good few years ago now, probably.
Time has flown, I tell you.
Time has flown, especially in his life. But
sure.
yeah. He seems to be doing all right again now, which is good to see. But yeah, had better days than what he had on that day as well. But yeah, I mean, it's a difficult corner, isn't it? Turn 1, best overtaking opportunity, but you have to be very committed. And even when you're on your own, it's quite tricky just to get the braking right and whatever. Not quite a normal hairpin. It's sort of disjointed.
No, I think that's a good way of describing it. Disjointed. Ryan Otis pit road for 6.8 seconds, so just under a 7-second stop actually for your 2020 Retro Series champion. Will emerge crucially behind Mike Razmas. So Razmas has made the undercut work. The drivers up front that were involved in this fight, maybe Reagan Sirois, will take note of that.
It may be, but these two are going to have a real fight towards the end now. It's going to be between those two. We'll see where Sirois comes out in terms of this. I think he needs to go out in front of them if he really stands a chance. I do think they have a little bit of an edge over him at this stage, but of course all these stops have got to cycle themselves out. Razmas though is going to be very pleased with how this pit stop cycle has actually ended up, because it's really benefited him possibly more than any other driver.
I think Chris Lanini has gone around again, but before we take a peek at that as they work through the chicane here, let's see a moment for Bobby Mikes. About 5 minutes ago, that happened through, what's it going to be, turn 8, turn 9, just again struggling with the balance of the car. He becomes our 4th retiree of this race as Michael O'Brien comes down to pit road for what is going to be the defining stop of this race. Execution is going to be paramount for O'Brien. A 10.5 second stop, longer than expected.
Longer than expected, but it doesn't really matter to him too much at this point, just making absolutely sure that he's got enough fuel to go to the end here. I mean, getting your first race win in any series is obviously a big deal, and especially this one. He's going to be so nervous at the moment, despite the pace he's got, despite the advantage he's got. He's going to be really, really nervous, and that long pit stop there is going to make him even more nervous, because this gap is going to really come down when Taylor comes in.
Graf, Rodriguez, they box as well for the final time. This time by will be 11 laps to go in the race. Taylor has only been on track for 14 laps. He could go another 5-6 laps for ducking down onto pit road. We'll track the lap times. Last time by Taylor, a 34.344. Of course, we'll see what O'Brien will respond with in a couple of laps' time. What a scintillating second half of the race is shaping up to be. We knew how tough it was to get past on track. Drivers adapted, are trying to do it in pit road.
Well, you've got to really, it really is all over the place at this stage, but it's all going to close up once the likes of Sirois, Reagan and those guys come into the pit lane. This battle for third, I think, is going to be really, really interesting. And obviously we'll keep an eye on O'Brien as well, see whether he can take home that race win. Chris has had a lot of top fives at this point, without ever getting that race win for O'Brien. 10 top fives so far for O'Brien, but never that race win. Is today going to finally be that day? It certainly deserves to be his day. Whether it is or not remains to be seen.
I think I've lost track of the number of second places that we've seen for him. Let me just go back over to our wonderfully compiled history book that the Lionheart Racing Series does provide to us. It's always great to have that in hand. 4 second place finishes of the 26 starts coming into today, so 27 including today's race. 3 of them have come this season. It's been close but no cigar, one too many times. We'll switch around now, 10 to go this time by. Not many battles left on the track itself. The only one that we're tracking is 2 drivers that have already had some contact with one another. Will the beef get stewed up some more as Alex Guyon tries to recover past on Cristobal Valenzuela?
You can certainly see in the body language of these 2 cars that they've had contact earlier on in the day. There's a little bit of tension in it at the moment, and Guyon is very eager to get through. Valenzuela, I should say, is very eager to not let that happen, and so it's a bit tense between these 2 at this stage. And there it is. Guyon has got a real opening there. The door has been opened, although not really able to make his way through. Round the outside through turn 3 is going to be difficult, and this is even harder.
Will we see it again? Outside line at turn 4 is asking for trouble, but Guyon will try it. Valenzuela says, not this time, buddy. He'll hold on for 13th spot. These 2 continue to fight. It's been a fun one, to say the very least. And while they fight, We'll pick up a moment again for Chris Lanini, this time in the final sector. Oh, there was a close call. Matt Taylor coming through as well.
Absolutely, that could have been disastrous. And this is the problem when you are a race leader coming up on so many lapped cars, is that you don't know where they're going to go. There could be incidents up in front, and you do have to very much keep your wits about you at this stage. But let's see how it happened. Just a bit too early on the throttle there by the sounds of it. And this is Taylor. In the end, Lanini was actually very good as a spun car there. You do not want to be jumping around and reversing onto the racing line and all that kind of thing. So he did that very well, and Taylor was able to avoid him. This is what happens when you do behave well as a spun car.
Yes, Connery Maddock is not complaining about any rejoins so far today. That is for sure. Our inaugural race here at the Hungaroring is in its closing stages. Still waiting for Taylor, Sirois, Reagan, as well as a couple more to come down onto pit road for the very final time. I wonder if Taylor will commit, not this time, but next time by. Has lost a whole heap of time, about 1 full second this lap, having to go past not one, but 2 different bits of lap traffic. His lap time, a 1:35.454.
Yeah, we haven't seen lap times that slow from him pretty much since his last pit stop, really, where obviously he stopped in his box, so obviously it's going to be a bit slower, so it's going to be really hurtful for him in this one. And so yeah, this is the point where he really should be gaining time on O'Brien, because let's not forget the 45 is fueled up to go to the end here. Taylor only fueled to go to about lap 42, 41, something around that kind of margin, so he will be a little bit lighter, about 5 laps lighter on fuel. He needs to be gaining a bit of time on O'Brien if indeed he's still got designs on winning this race. So yeah, he just doesn't need that lap traffic at all, although most of it is negotiated now.
Reagan boxes, and you can see up on the jacks as well, so grabbing at the very least a tire as he rolls off the jacks. Razmas, Otis well and truly clear, the undercut working a treat for them. Reagan will focus his attention on the battle with potentially Chris Fowler in the third of the MadWorks Motorsports machines. Talking of Otis and Razmas, still separated by just half a second. 68 car holding on for the time being. They'll be looking at the gap to David Sirois, potentially to jump in front of him. It was about 20 seconds last time at the line. For Guyon and Valenzuela side by side again, this time into turn 1. But Guyon in the 08 will finally get up to 13th spot.
Yeah, you would have thought that mistake at turn 2 last lap would have been good enough for him, but he wasn't able to do it. Finally does it the hard way and the normal way. Here up into 13th position on this occasion, just with a little bit of outbraking into turn 1 on this occasion, so nice to make his way through. But Ryan Otis once again is going to find himself in the top 5 here, as he always seems to in the Lionheart Retro Series. 47 top 5s out of the 59 starts he's had so far.
Wow.
That's top 5s, it's an unbelievable record. And the most remarkable thing, possibly my favourite statistic of all time, he's never finished in positions 6 to 10 in the Retro Series. How has that even happened? This is his 60th race. How does that happen?
Because he either does well or he doesn't do well, apparently.
Yeah.
So this is start 60 with 9 wins coming into this one. It's a pretty impressive hit list in terms of the wins that he's had, of course. What a streak of champions that we've had as well. It was Adam Blocker one year, Ryan Otis I think the following year, and then Aaron Morgan. It is the who's who of this Lionheart Racing Series. But Ryan Otis with wins in almost every season of Retro Series competition. Missed out on a win in season 2, but since his step back from active competition at the end of season 4, yet to return to HyperX victory lane. Today will not be that day. Matt Taylor he just lost all the time that he has figured out. Yeah, because the gap to Sirois has closed to just 5.
Yeah, it was approaching over 15, and he was gaining on O'Brien quite quickly as well. I was starting to wonder whether this race might be back on again, but it's certainly not. Taylor's into the pit lane. O'Brien's going to be back in the lead before we know it. Sirois will do briefly, but what has happened to Matt Taylor? He's thrown away a possible opportunity at winning another race here down the drain. I'm still sceptical as to whether it would have been enough for him, but he's certainly made sure of it now.
Yes, there you go. I think the thing is as well, is the mistake significant enough for him to lose second? I think that's the question that I really have. The good news, the stop was short, just 5.7 seconds.
And that would have been quite a lot shorter than O'Brien's, about 5 seconds shorter. You think about the gap was 8 seconds when it was 8 or 9. It would have been down to about 3,
4.
and Taylor was gaining on O'Brien. So, yeah, this race could have, if it wasn't over, then it was certainly going to be a little bit more nail-biting than it was earlier on. O'Brien would have had his heart in his mouth anyway.
It was open. I think that's the way you describe it. It wasn't completely set in stone. Who was that? Chris Staples is on pit road, so it definitely wasn't his. Chris Lanini, many cars really not enjoying today. Very similar to what we had at Brands Hatch. But let's figure out what exactly happened to the race leader at the time. So out of the chicane, just pushes wide into the grass, locks it down, and I tell you what, has got away with one there by the skin of his teeth.
He has. Oh, he scraped the wall badly as well, getting going again. Oh, dearie me. He's going to be so frustrated with himself because he's just pushed a little bit too far out on the exit. He's not exactly made a mistake clipping the curb, which is often does for you. He's just almost carelessly driven onto the outside there and cost himself a shot at this race win. I do think he would have been able to apply that little bit of pressure, and with O'Brien on the cusp of a first win, that pressure would have loomed larger in his mind than maybe it would in the minds of some others.
Yes.
So he's going to be frustrated. Loses about 10 seconds. The gap would have been just under 4. Once again, I'm still sceptical as to whether the result would have been any different, but it certainly would have been more scope for a change, I suppose, more pressure.
And now with David Sirwa on pit road, we track the race battle, I should say, to stay inside of the podium positions. Sirwa's going to hold off both Razmas and Otis, but it is going to be a 3-way fight for the final step of the podium. With 6 laps left to go, David Sirwa has got to pick up the intensity. 2 drivers on the charge, lurking large.
Yeah, and Razmas is going to very much want this podium. It's been a very good drive from him today, and once again, one that you'd expect from a championship contender and a championship leader like him. Not the best qualifying, a little bit underwhelming maybe in qualifying, but certainly not an underwhelming race from him in terms of the way he's raced it, in terms of racecraft, in the way he strategized his way around today, and the way that he's really turned the pace on as well in the final moments of this race. It's been very, very impressive, and one might say a champion's drive, although we are only first half of the season. He's got a long way to go.
You are asking for trouble when you say things like that. Great look on board with your HyperX onboard camera, and the 68 of Mike Razmas down low to the ground, seeing the relative elevation changes here just northeast of Budapest in Hungary. 5 to go. O'Brien 15 seconds clear. I cannot wait for this interview, but he's going to have to survive. Your championship leader had a moment there through the penultimate corner. All sorts of twisted up. Razmas still pointed straight.
Yeah, he'll be caught in 2 minds here though, won't he? Because he'll want this podium from Silwa, but he'll also really not want to let Otis into this one. If he takes his eye off the rearview mirror too much, then he'll be inviting the 95 to have a go. So he does have to be very, very careful into what he's hoping for here. And the very last thing he wants is an incident as well. So that will be in the back of his mind also. And of course, there's a little bit of lap traffic just up in front, a battling pair of cars up in front here, which is also not going to help.
I believe that's George Anzaldo as well as Cody Wenzen. We mentioned, of course, that traffic was going to play a factor. It will play a factor in the battle for the podium spots. There is series organizer George Anzaldo in the 6, so can confirm it's Wenzen and Anzaldo. Remember, blue flags here on the sim don't operate the same way they do in modern Formula 1, so how urgent will Anzaldo and Wenzen be, given there are points on the line for them? Anzaldo doesn't yield to Sirwa, closing his Razmas, almost contact there. Anzaldo on the apex of the corner, slowed down. Here comes the charge from Razmas.
Yeah, he tried to get out of the way, but it wasn't what Cyril was expecting whatsoever. Nearly ended up in an accident, and now he's certainly got Razmas which is the company. It's going to be a very, very frantic final few laps for these guys, trying to hold on to whatever position they've got and trying to move up in the case of Razmas as well. Staples has gone off the road somewhere as well.
He's retired. Chris Staples on course for a top 10, retires from the race in the closing stages. This track continues to bite. 27 started, now 5 retired, just 16 left on the leading lap. Across the line once more, Sirwa blocks off the inside. Otis will have a lunge to the inside of the championship leader. He backs out of that one. Ryan Otis knows the one thing that you don't want to do as a part-time driver in a series, take out the championship leader.
Absolutely not. You don't want to do it for your full-time driver either,
Fair.
to be fair. But yeah, I'd certainly take your point, because Otis, he's really in a difficult situation. I think if he attacks Razmas too hard here, and if they battle too hard, then Suraj is going to be let up the road very easily. When the two of them start battling really hard, Suraj is going to be basically let up the road, so they do have to be careful of that as well. Otis has really got to pick and choose his moments very carefully now.
Mark Cohn, the winner of 2 of our Triple Crown races in 2021, dives to pit road with 4 to go. He'll give up what was 10th on track, sliding backwards now into the midst of the top 15 with just a 4.6 second stop. Let's see what happened to Chris Staples in the 96 car, because I have the feeling it wasn't going to be a small incident. They are getting bigger, they are getting badder. Here's the look, and it's the trouble spot on the outside of the run through turn 4. That is the biggest crash we've seen so far, but it's not the first time we've seen that mirror replica of 2 prior crashes today.
Yeah, that outside curb claiming another victim. You can just see the slight miss of the apex, and then that's it from there. There's not a lot you can do. You don't really know that that's going to happen until you're right on that point in the curb and your car's snapping about. It's just too late. Once you know that it's going wrong, it's far too late for you to do anything about it. And once again, we're seeing how more remarkable it is that Rodriguez is still in this race because of what we saw earlier. I don't know how he managed to save that car, but he did somehow, and he's going to get a top 10 for his trouble.
Yeah, despite the fact that he's lost 2 positions, it is damage limitation. Razmas almost looped it down at turn 3. Otis will send it around the outside for the second time today. Turn 4 becomes a passing opportunity. Ryan Otis gets past the 68.
Another impressive one. Razmas obviously was a little bit compromised on the exit of turn 3 there, and was made Otis' life a little bit easier. However, it was still a very difficult pass around the outside of turn 4. Is never ever easy, and so 4th place for the 95 now. They do still have the problem of Silra being quite far up the road, so the fight for 3rd might be out now, but Razmas there broke a little bit early, made sure Otis had the room, and there we go, round the outside through turn 4 for the second time.
To commit to a move like that, you have to know that the drivers around you will give you the space, will show you the respect that you need to get it done. Cody Wenz and George Anzaldo both ducked down to pit road to get out of the battle for the lead, for the final step of the podium. It's ended in tears for them. Coming around though, 2 laps to go. This battle for 3rd will continue to go on. The question will be, will your championship leader settle for 5th position?
I think he's got to at this stage. We commented on earlier, he's been very consistent this season. There's drop rounds that he'll be able to take advantage on. There's still 9 races left. I don't think he needs to make a daring lunge to try and go through, but of course he'll certainly want to. This is what happened coming out of the chicane there for the 63. Able to get going again.
And you saw Anzaldo with a good heads-up reaction there, just taking to the grass. He saw the 63 lock it down. Good driving from both sides there to survive. Wenzen looping it by himself. These drivers in that battle for 3rd to the chicane for the penultimate time. No errors for them. Continue to track in formation, winding through the middle sector of the lap. But for this man, 1 lap to go until the joy of victory is Michael O'Brien's. 4.4 kilometers, 2.7 miles. Michael O'Brien, a lap away from his first career victory.
Yeah, he's been waiting so long for this, and a more deserving driver and a more deserving drive on a singular day you'll be hard pushed to find. He's led pretty much every single lap of this race, bar 1 or 2 through the pit stop cycle. Took control from the very opening moment when the green flag was first waved here in this race. Came under a little bit of pressure from Taylor, but weathered that storm, negotiated all the traffic, and as I say, really deserving winner, and he'll be absolutely delighted.
They're fighting for 14th in front of him, Rodrigo Munoz, as well as Luke Daniels, the 09 and the 28. But I don't think if you're O'Brien, there's any impetus, there's no incentive to insert yourself into this battle. You can hang back with 14.5 seconds to your teammate and Matt Taylor. You can afford to let this last lap seep in, let the emotions become real. Battle for 3rd. sees their own bit of lap traffic. It's Luis Gonzalez Nunez that now splits David Sirwa from Ryan Otis. That is what the 99 would have wanted to see.
Absolutely, and that lap traffic might just save him actually here. Oh, getting in the way a little bit through out of turn 5. Otis is going to be fairly close to Razmath there. Real miscommunication with that lap traffic, so he will definitely be finishing here in 5th.
It has taken a while. Michael O'Brien has done it all except win in this Lionheart Retro Series. His 27th career start with 3 second-place finishes building up in 2022. It's built up, it's bobbled to the top. Michael O'Brien is a winner in your Lionheart Retro Series, conquering the Hungaroring and winning the Next Level Racing Grand Prix of the Hungaroring, presented by SimRace247. It's a win that will live on for a while. O'Brien is a popular figure. We've seen the dejection that he's faced so far, but finally the elation, a winner, and in HyperX victory lane.
Yeah, very deserving, as I say. Great drive from him here today, and he's been plugging away at this one for week after week after week. Finally, he's going to have his day, and he'll add his name to the ever-growing list of winners in the Lionheart Retro Series.
I always find it amusing what people put on the sides of their cars. Michael O'Brien, in keeping with the theme of MadWorks Motorsports, elected for something intriguing, the word crash. He's had his fair share of spills so far in 2022, but finally a perfect, trouble-free drive. It is the race that dreams are built on. Those are some slides, some victory celebrations. A long time in the making. His teammate Matt Taylor will come across the line in second. A great day for MadWorks Motorsports as they bounce back in the fight with Graphics LC for the HyperX Team Championship. And for David Sirwa, the podiums continue to build up. What a strong driver he is on these road courses. Just getting quicker on the ovals as well. It's time for Michael O'Brien to burn it down in HyperX victory lane. An intriguing race where strategy was key, and I know you and I have our own contrasting opinions on this track, but while the racing was hit or miss at times, we love a good battle on strategy. It could have been oh so closer.
It could have been oh so different. Yeah, once again, I really think that O'Brien would have felt under a lot of pressure if the gap was around 3 seconds when Taylor came out of the pit lane there. That long final stop for the eventual race winner was potentially costly, and so yeah, it really could have been a different story, but he won't care about that, will he, O'Brien? He's very much enjoying his moment, having his moment, and he very much deserves to. Taylor will, I'm sure, have his day at some point throughout. He has already been in victory lane 6 times in the Retro Series, so he does know the feeling. I'm sure he'll be tasting it again soon.
And never forget that for the teammates, they are your defending team champions under the banner of Avatar Order Racing. They are fighting to maintain their stranglehold on the team championship as well. It's always great to have a feel-good winner, no matter what the series is, but as we run you down through your SimRace247 race result, it is Michael O'Brien, a winner in the Lionheart Retro Series. Matt Taylor 15 seconds behind. If not for the mistake that he had coming out of the chicane, that gap could have been down in single-second brackets. It could have been a very different run to the checkered flag. For David Sirwa, the Raven Lavar Motorsports number 99 was good enough to get to the podium, beating out the 2020 Retro Series champion Ryan Otis and our points leader Mike Razmas. Chris Reagan, after starting up in the field, held back some of those in the pack in front of him, but was able to continue to keep the pace up, keep the momentum rolling. He'll finish 6th in front of the 3rd of the MadWorks Motorsports cars, Chris Fowler in 7th. Tyler Graf comes home across the line in 8th. David Rodriguez's recovery drive was one to commend as he stays inside of the top 10 despite a number of issues. Alex Guyon completes the top 10, albeit in an interesting fight that he had with 11th place Cristobal Valenzuela for the Backfire Motorsports team. Behind him, Gabe Wood, who slid backwards after starting up in 8th. Mark Cohen, Rodrigo Munoz, Luke Daniels all working forward a couple of spots in front of Adam Fraser, the 88, with a couple of moments losing it out on track. Luis Gonzalez Nunez and Fraser, the first cars 1 lap down, with Lanini, Gales, and Zaldo, the top 20, But all finishing this race along with the likes of Craig Forsyth and Cody Wenz, and it was Chris Staples, Robert Might, Brett Accord, Marius Valiokis, Lionel Callisto, and Brian Hotham, the retirees in this inaugural trip to Hungary for these Lotus 79s. The fastest lap came on the penultimate lap. Matt Taylor turning up the wick in the closing stages. A 1:33.291, but not good enough to get to victory lane. And that leads us into our HyperX post-race show, because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. The victory celebrations are still ongoing. We wait for Michael O'Brien to come and join us here in the RaceSpot TV commentary booth, and the man from New Zealand joins us now. Michael, I am so delighted we finally get to call you a Lionheart Retro Series winner. What a performance today. Talk to us about the emotions of this victory. We will get Michael O'Brien on the line. The joys of live broadcasting mean it's never going to go to plan. We'll go in reverse order today, though. We'll start from the final step of the podium. David Sirrod joins us here in the comms booth now. David, talk to us about that race. First in, stuck behind Chris Reagan, had to work your way past and try and run away from those chasing you down.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed with my qualification. I could have been third on the grid, but yeah, it was a great battle with Chris. I know he's a clean driver, and but I had to work hard to be close enough in turn one to pass him on the braking.
What was this track like? A lot of chatter coming into the week about the difficulty of passing, how to keep the tires under you. It's a technical track. It's one I like. How did it race behind the wheel?
It was really exhausting. I enjoyed this track. It is so the rhythm is great on the and you can never rest because you're always turning left and right, and but yeah, it's a very challenging track, and I love it. But I didn't have the pace today. I was struggling on the braking, especially in turn one, and I worked hard on my driving before the race, but it was not enough. But third place, I'm very happy.
And crucially, you closed the gap to the championship leader. You came into this race sat in second. I mean, last year was a transition year for you, right? Getting comfortable and familiar with the ovals. This year, we've seen the pace continue to pick up. What more can you do for the rest of 2022?
Oh, I'm just keep going, keep doing what I'm doing best, and being consistent, and being the fastest I can be. But Michael O'Brien and Matt Tyler and Mike Razimas are very fast, faster than me. So I don't believe I have chances in the championship, but I'm doing my best anyway, and keeping it clean as much as I can do. I just want to congratulate Michael O'Brien for his first win. I'm very happy for him.
I love it. I said it was a popular victory. I'm glad to be proven right. Congratulations, David, on the podium. Still half the season left to go. Can't count yourself out of the championship. We'll see what the rest of the year has in store for you.
Thank you. See you next time, guys.
David Sirrod on the podium once more for Raven Lavoie Motorsports. Now to the second step of the podium. We go to Matt Taylor, who joins us now. Matt, it was a good race for you and your teammate. Unfortunately, one mistake took you out of the chance for fighting, but it's fair to say Michael just had remarkable pace here today.
Yeah, he was on it. And early on there, we were at least somewhat trading tenths here and there, and so I was planning on going on a little bit different strategy to see how that would play out in the long run, and ended up, I think, having 3 or 4 lap cars spin out right in front of me, and then finally just a little out of shape and touched the grass and slid out of there, and that was it.
In terms, though, of the rest of the season, we're halfway done. Again, you're in the championship mix, and crucially, with 2 double points races from now, it's all about stacking up the momentum, something you were very strong in the back half of 2021. How do you contrast the first 9 races of this year to how things went last year for you?
I think the first 9 races were really stronger. It was we had really as a team and myself just had a horrible Indy at the last event, and that really sort of kneecapped our season up to this point. But we'll just have to try and regroup and just see if we can't chip away at Mike's point lead there and see what happens at the end.
One more question, we'll get you out of here for the night. Talk to us about this track. I like it. I think it's got a place on the schedule because you have to work for passes. You get plenty of strategy plays. What were your thoughts from behind the wheel as one of our series veterans?
It is an extremely technical track and demands a lot of the driver. There's a little bit of a break. It's not quite as demanding as, say, Brands Hatch or that, but like you mentioned, making a pass on somebody who's on equal pace either takes some creativity on the strategy or a mistake, and yeah, you really had to work for it. Luckily, I think for us, we had really good pace tonight, and we were able to separate ourselves. But it sure looked like a battle back in the rest of the field there.
It looked fun. We'll let you go. Of course, back-to-back races means we'll see you in 7 days' time. We'll see how Iowa will treat you. Congratulations, Matt.
Thank you.
And we will finally cycle back to the HyperX victory lane and to your race winner, where hopefully Michael O'Brien is finally standing by. Michael, do we have a copy with you?
I think you got me this time.
We got you loud and clear. My friend, tell me what this means. Tell me how happy you are to finally knock the victory off the bucket list.
Oh my god, it finally happened. I got that monkey off my back. That feels great. Fantastic. And in pretty good fashion too. And a fantastic result for the team.
I think you're underselling just how good you were out on track. You somewhat scared me at the beginning of qualifying. You didn't put your lap time in until the very end of the session. What was going on there? How close was it to being a lost to first challenge for you?
Yeah, that scared me a bit too, actually. On my first lap, I actually did a 34.0 and got an off track right on the exit of the last corner, so that kind of sucked. Then I was scrambling to chase it after that, but got one in the end.
You got it. You got the victory. What now? What's next now? I mean, things are looking good for you and the team, of course, bouncing back from giving some points up to Graphics LC at Indy. Half the season's done. It's still all to play for. There are more championship players than we know who... Getting myself all sorts of twisted here. Of all the championship players, I have no idea, watching this championship now for a year and a half, who's going to emerge on top. How are you feeling with half the season done?
Yeah, Indy really hurt us for drivers and teams, so that kind of sucked. But no, we just got to start clawing points back from Mike, and I think he had an incident near the end of this race, so we got a pretty good chunk of points this race. And yeah, the front of this retro field is just super strong. Any race, there's half a dozen to 10 people that could win it, so...
It took 27 attempts to take win number 1. Let's hope we'll see you back in HyperX victory lane sooner rather than later. Congratulations, Michael. Enjoy this victory.
Thanks so much, guys.
Michael O'Brien joins us in the RaceBot TV commentary booth from HyperX victory lane to round out our post-race interviews. What a moment it is. A first-time win is always something special. Drivers from around the paddock ready to greet and celebrate along with the 45, the MadWorks Motorsports of Michael O'Brien. But next up, it's a back-to-back fiesta of racing. The NTT IndyCar Series heads to the cornfields of Iowa this weekend for a doubleheader. We will follow suit 7 days from now here live on RaceBot TV and ESTV on rebroadcast. It's round 10. It's time to kick off the second half of the season. And Ewan, one of the beauties of American open wheel racing is diversity of tracks. You can't get very much different than the Hungaroring and Iowa.
No, you really can't. Iowa, obviously a unique oval in its own right, which is a challenge in its own right, as I say, but as you say, Hungaroring and Iowa back-to-back is really quite a turnaround, and it's going to be quite a turnaround for these guys. Obviously, they don't have to work out a setup, of course. However, they do have to figure out where they're going around here, and it's not as easy as just turning left twice in a lap. It is a lot more complex than that. It's a lot more difficult than that, and it's the racing is going to be a lot closer than maybe what it seems. It's going to be a very exciting race indeed as we enter into the second half of the season.
And of course, we're coming off no races for 3 weeks, but 3 back-to-back races. We go super speedway style racing at Michigan in the first week of August before a trip to Long Beach a couple of weeks after that. we start to get a little bit spread out, but with consistency still mixed in. Motegi, a doubleheader, first to the Grand Prix layout, then a week later we return to the Land of the Rising Sun and the 1.4 mile oval. Then, about 3 weeks later, to the circuit Gilles Villeneuve and the high curves that will greet us there with entry into the Wall of Champions free of charge. Gateway, the Worldwide Technology Raceway, will greet us into November, where Road America will be the last stop before all roads lead to Auto Club and our next of the double point showdowns. At this point of the championship, Ewan, regardless of where you are in the title fight, what's going through your mind as you focus in for another 9 races in 2022?
It's just about keeping that consistency going, isn't it, really? And that's what's going to win you the championship. It always does. So that's what you have to focus on, just getting these races ticked off with a good amount of points under your belt. And particularly at these ovals, which I find are a little bit more unpredictable in terms of where you can end up, stay out of accidents throughout the race. Particularly think about Iowa next time out. It's going to be and Michigan, I suppose, as well. It's going to be very, very tricky to stay out of trouble at times. So actually doing that is going to be very important.
And I think when I looked at the schedule, the one thing that now stands out to me is with 2 more new tracks left to see what we have in store for us, there is still surprises for veterans and rookies alike. There is no saying that we know what's in store for the rest of the season. We know what the form book will hold in store for us. Plenty of questions still left to be answered, but at least now one question has officially been answered. When will Michael O'Brien get that first career victory? It came here in Hungary, the first time the Lotus 79s embarked east on their trip in this 2022 campaign. But with that said, it is time to say goodbye and to thank those that make all of this possible, starting with Next Level Racing, the title sponsor of the Lionheart Retro Series. Next Level Racing is an immersive, industry-leading cockpit and motion simulator manufacturer devoted to creating the most immersive experience possible for the global sim racing community. Take your racing to the next level and visit nextlevelracing.com. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makes the premier gaming gear like the legendary Ultra Comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com.
You're passionate about sim racing, but it always feels a little flat compared to the driving of a real car. Now you can actually feel what it's like to drive a race car with BookKicker haptics, hardware and software are easy to install and let you feel every bump in the track, slip of your tyre and engine redline. The tactile feedback is so accurate and realistic, you'll be driving faster and having more fun than ever before.
Moser Racing is revolutionizing sim racing with the development of industry-leading hardware and software products, like their R9 direct drive wheelbase and GS steering wheel. Featuring zero-delay wireless technology and made from high-end materials, Moser Racing delivers the precision you need to reach victory lane.
Gomez Sim Industries are makers of high-end esports equipment and controls, precision built using nothing but the best materials available today. Passion and handmade craftsmanship drive each other to order builder, creating a driving experience like no other. Visit GomezSimIndustries.com.
And it's not just them, but so many more that make this all happen. To learn more about the Lionheart Racing Series, the 3 competitions the sanctioning body puts on, or its friends, head over to LionheartRacingSeries.com to find out more. Don't forget as well, social media will keep you up to date with the latest comings and going from the virtual paddock as the Lionheart Racing Series gets set to go racing for the second half of 2022. All the action will be live on RaceBot TV. We cannot wait to see what's in store for us, with 3 fantastic racing series still left to play themselves out. For now though, from Hungary, it is time to bid you farewell. The Retro Series headed to the Hungaroring for the very first time. It was a difficult race, drivers falling by the wayside one by one, but one rose to the top, one dominated the proceedings here today, winning the Next Level Racing Grand Prix of the Hungaroring presented by SimRace247 and taking home his first victory in this Lionheart Retro Series. Michael O'Brien has the monkey off his back. But now with 3 races back to back, the intensity will continue to roll on. Join us on Thursday, July the 28th, here live on RaceBot TV. We'll head to Iowa for the HyperX Iowa 150. After that, the Gomez Sim Industries Michigan 200 presented by Butt Kicker will welcome us to the month of August. Back-to-back ovals will challenge drivers in very different ways. For now, though, we bid you farewell. For the team at RaceSpot TV and for my co-commentator in Ewan O'Leary, my name is Arjuna Kankipati. Saying goodbye for now. We'll see you next time on RaceSpot TV for more Lionheart action. For now, we celebrate Michael O'Brien, finally a winner in your Lionheart Retro Series.